as somebody that constantly goes on television almost daily and defends the royal family, I'm struggling right now.
If Prince Andrew thinks that he can escape somehow and hide among those names, he's got another thing coming, because he is one of the biggest names in this whole scenario.
The Metropolitan Police have 3 times refused to investigate Prince Andrew's activities. It's time for them to get on with the job now and find out what happened.
Prince Andrew back in the headlines, bracing for a nightmare new year after a US judge ruled unheard evidence relating to grope allegations made against him can be released. The 40 documents could reveal more details of the Duke's encounters with Joanna Soderbergh, who claims the prince groped her breasts at Jeffrey Epstein's New York home in 2001. The documents will be made public in just 2 weeks' time, alongside hundreds of other files, revealing the names of more than 170 people who were associates, friends or victims of billionaire paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Rupert, I think people hoped, as I'm certain that Prince Andrew hoped, that there wasn't much more to this story, and that having paid millions of pounds of his mother's money for this story to go away, it would have gone away. But somehow, here it is back again. So what has happened to reinvigorate and give new life and possible new developments to what feels to many like an old story?
Well, it may be an old story, but there's been so many sort of allegations around and issues surrounding Jeffrey Epstein that there's always a danger that yet more revelations would appear. Well, clearly, following these this revelations yesterday, we now know there are, and this is always has been the problem for Prince Andrew. Ever since he made this settlement of $12 million to Virginia Giuffre, and given all the problems around the sort of the Jeffrey Epstein case, there was always a possibility that the Duke of York could be brought back into it, and that's exactly what's happened. And it was always going to be an area that the royal family were going to be feeling vulnerable from, and in particular, Prince Andrew, by his links with Jeffrey Epstein, has caused yet more sort of anxiety for members of the royal family as he's drawn back into this scandal.
If Prince Andrew thinks that he can escape somehow and hide among those names, he's got another thing coming, because he is one of the biggest names in this whole scenario. And as you rightly say, he's denied everything. But this lady, Joanna Soderbergh, there are going to be more documents in her relationship with Prince Andrew. She's already accused him of groping her breast. And I have to say that she herself said that of her own volition, she sat on Andrew's lap, and when he grabbed her breasts, it was done in a jokey manner. I'm not trying to belittle the girl or say that that was right or anything like that, but that's what she is saying. It'll be interesting to see what the actual documents now say about all this. And I'm afraid Andrew is in for a very, very uncomfortable ride in the new year.
We've heard claims before about Prince Andrew. He settled a civil lawsuit against Virginia Giuffre, paid her, we think, in the region of 8, 9, 10 million pounds to seal this up. But seeing these claims being made, not in a documentary or a newspaper interview, but in basically sworn testimony in depositions, it's very different, isn't it? And it's very damaging for people like Prince Andrew.
Well, indeed, it is certainly damaging for him. None of the other people involved, whose names there's a lot of papers to go through here, but none of the names I've come across so far have actually been accused of anything to do with the sex trafficking of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The only person who has been accused is Prince Andrew. He had an opportunity to clear his name when Virginia Giuffre sued him. He decided to settle out of court by, as you say, a huge amount of money, while still denying that he'd ever met her.
Yeah.
And I think it's a time now, although the Metropolitan Police have 3 times refused to investigate Prince Andrew's activities, it's time for them to get on with the job now and find out what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it extraordinary there hasn't been a proper police investigation into this. I agree with you on that. Again, he's always denied any wrongdoing. As you say, denied even ever meeting Virginia Giuffre, and yet bizarrely paying her this large sum of money to make it go away, we're told. But this is the thing. This is coming back to haunt him.
Forget the New Year's honours list. The most awaited list of names in 2024 is the dishonours list. And these these people are all essentially being called as witnesses in the cases of what quite went on that pedo island. And I think it would be very embarrassing for a lot of people. And, you know, it's one of those things where people might say, well, you know, he was a big international financier. Of course, I did business with him and enjoyed his hospitality. What, and you didn't notice all the young girls?
You got onto a private plane and you went to an island full of 15-year-old girls. Yeah, that's not hospitality. That's a crime.
We know that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted. He wasn't just standing trial when he lost his life either by his own hand or someone else's. He was already convicted as a paedophile, sex trafficker of children. I mean, I don't know what else someone could do that would make you go, I don't want anything to do with this person. But people like Prince Andrew went and stayed in his house for 4 days after that, apparently to break off his friendship. People were still willing to have dealings with this man because he was so rich and he was so powerful. There were so many men around him all the time. And yet everyone in this documentary who was testifying was saying there were these young girls, not are they 18 or 19? Young girls who looked like they were, 14, 15, 16, sitting around the house, whether it was the island or whether it was the house in New York. What on earth is this middle-aged, single, childless man doing with a bunch of teenage girls in his house? Did no one go, hold on a minute, this isn't right? I was saying on the show yesterday, even when I had a 15-year-old, I didn't want a bunch of teenagers, 15-year-old girls hanging around my house. So why on earth would this middle-aged single man want it? Other than he had a sexual interest in them. And it's amazing that this went on for years in plain sight. That's the really scary thing.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how you can't compare it to something like Harvey Weinstein, where people talked about it quietly. Everyone understood that it was a secret, and everybody kept that secret as long as they got to participate and have their fun or whatever the justification is.
Or keep their job.
I truly don't know, because I'm not capable of doing that.
Yeah.
But it does seem like, as somebody that constantly goes on television almost daily and defends the royal family, I'm struggling right now. I'm really struggling with the Prince Andrew scenario.
Well, this is the thing with Prince. When it comes to Prince Andrew was he invited this man to parties at royal palaces. His daughter's birthday party along with Ghislaine Maxwell. They were close friends. They weren't associates. They were close friends. You don't invite people to your child's birthday unless you're close friends. He went and stayed in his house. The idea that he didn't know what was going on is for the birds. Everyone knows that. And the idea that his security team didn't know what was going on and didn't flag that to their senior security people at the palace, and that wasn't flagged. The idea that the principal secretary to the Queen didn't say, ma'am, we need to have a word about some of the associates of your favourite son. I think everyone there is up to their necks in it.
Prince Andrew and his history with Jeffrey Epstein has been well documented, but just when you go through the documents and you actually read out the accusations and the quotes from the accusers while they're being questioned by lawyers, it's really startling. You mentioned the underage orgy that Prince Andrew is accused of. I have the exact quote here. Jane Doe number 3, this is from the document, was forced to have sexual relations with this prince when she was a minor in London at Ghislaine Maxwell's apartment in New York and on Epstein's private island, again, in an orgy with numerous other underage girls. And then the other thing that you mentioned, the other example with Prince Andrew was just a really strange and disturbing picture that was described by one of the accusers where both Soderbergh and Giuffre were in this picture that involved a puppet, and the puppet was on one of their breasts, and Prince Andrew's hand, according to the claim, was on Soderbergh's breast. So when you see those accusations in clear terms and it's very specific, it's obviously incredibly disturbing.
Can I defend Andrew a little bit on this?
Please do, yeah.
I mean, he's kind of almost served his sentence now the last couple of years or the last decade. And I think what the House of York will be looking at when these documents come out is the other 170 associates of Jeffrey Epstein that haven't had the same storm of abuse that Andrew has had over the last, 10 years. And sometimes the House of York is a little bit delusional in the way that it has reacted to Epstein. But Epstein's the bad guy here. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's the bad guy here. Andrew is the only person who's actually come out and spoken about what's happened, although it was badly done.
Listen, we haven't got much time, and I actually respect your opinion, but I think his strategy and the advice that he took from a journalist's point of view, you would admit was not great. But maybe you're right, and maybe there are rumours very quickly that Fergie and he might get remarried. Maybe that will happen.
One of the problems we've got with Prince Andrew is his own character, his personality. I mean, he's a pompous oaf, to be honest with you, full of his own status. And he is not losing that status easily. You know, he is fighting all the way. We're here, he's still demanding to the king, let me come back to frontline royal duties. No, mate, you get on your horse and look a bit weird in Windsor Great Park with your little hat on, and you get into your Land Rover or your Range Rover and you drive wherever you... Where is he driving when you see him? Where's he going?
I love he gets on his horse and looks a bit weird.
Yeah, he does. He got the, I know.
He's off to the Pizza Express and working.
Oh, God, no. He's off to get some sweat. Yeah. No, I always find the relationship between him and Fergie quite confusing. I mean, what's going on there?
Well, she idolises him. At least someone's got to. She's his last fan on earth, apart from himself, of course.